what's his name, Sam ended up living in a tent in the woods after they knocked his house down. This video ended up going viral. I took the clip you saw just the way it was and I put it out. And it went viral. It got into the Huffington Post covered it, the Daily Mail. It was on Yahoo's homepage. We had over a million views, and it was on hundreds of websites and blogs. It brought a lot of attention to this, really to Sam. And I was contacted by a nonprofit called Make It Rain, who saw the video and wanted to build Sam a house, and a tiny house. So we'll move on and we'll see that part right now.
Sam, it is a great pleasure for me to present to you from Make It Rain the keys to your new home.
Beautiful. Oh, that's great. Yeah, a little while.
When you step through the door, home at last. That's the best I can say.
Now, the house, we put that house there. It's a state park, and he stayed there for 2 weeks until he was only allowed there for 2 weeks. And he ended up going back into the woods. That was the last November when we gave him the house. This was the past Christmas I went to see him, where he's living in the woods right now. And the house sits there empty because it is illegal for people to live in tiny homes. And again, I say most parts of the country, especially in New Jersey where this all had taken place. So, last thing I want to show you is my documentary. It's Destiny's Bridge. It's about this homeless camp, and this is where Sam comes from, by the way. It's actually in the film, which you just saw parts of it anyway. And this is the trailer. Go ahead and let us start, and we'll talk this over.
We're designing our society where the poor can't afford a place to live. It doesn't need to be that way. You know, we can build housing for everybody. At every wage level, we can build a house for them. So many homeless people, you know, trying to create tent cities because the shelter systems aren't working, the government systems aren't working. There's not enough subsidized monies to go around. Our society can afford to produce a system where everybody has a house. Working at McDonald's, working at Walmart, working at any minimum wage job. You go into some small village in Africa, the first thing that they're going to let you do is build a hut for yourself. It's just almost so basic, people would say that you need a place to live.
It's just that people think that they can stay there forever and they're comfortable where they are, but hopefully we'll be able to show them something better. They'll accept it right away once they know that there's going to be an end to it.
The focus is on Steve. Once they get Steve out, there will be nothing to tear this down.
Yeah, they arrested me again last night. Yeah, this is the second time. The township wants you to tear down your home.
For a lot of people down here, this is all we have. And they just want to take it and rip it out from underneath us. This is my home.
If you think that you're just going to come in here and take my son, guess what? The fight is on because I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing.
Get ready! We're moving forward. The judge said that we've got a right to be here. Lakewood tried to evict us and the judge said no. I'm a 12th generation American. I've got a lot of pride in America. I want to believe in America. Give me something to believe in.
Give me something to believe in. That was Minister Steve. He's the main character in my documentary, and I just happened to see him a couple days ago, and he had said to me something. I wrote it down. He said, "The world is changing rapidly, but the government is responding slowly." And that seems to be what the issue is with tiny homes. So why is it illegal to live in tiny, affordable, eco-friendly homes in most parts of America? There's two main issues. The biggest obstacles are zoning regulations and minimum building requirements. The average home today, well, this is 2014, is supposed to be $272,000. I just saw on CNN, I don't know if anyone saw the United Shades of America, that new show they have. They did something on tiny homes just last week, and they were saying it was $315,000 was the average cost of a home in the country. Tiny houses can be built from $15,000 to $20,000 if you build them yourself, and you could double that to about $30,000 to $50,000 if you hire a contractor. And if we think about who would want to live in a tiny house, of course, environmentally concerned people would want an eco-friendly home. That's a good reason. College students with high student loans. Do you know that 50% of adults aged 18 to 34 are living with their parents today? And that's the highest it's ever been since the Great Depression. Older people who are retired on fixed income, and of course poor people and homeless people would love to live in a tiny home. And so there's a lot of need for it. Now, one last thing I want to say, and then we can ask questions if we have any time left, is that the AARP is now pushing for new zoning laws that will allow builders to build ADUs. And an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, which is a detached tiny house that you could put on your own property. And they're pushing to get this kind of zoning and allowing, just for those reasons we said, for your children, for your parents, for whoever needs to have a place to live on property that you own, on a house that you build yourself, you pay taxes on, and you build it to all the codes of your township. But just trying to make that legal. So, do we have a few minutes left? I don't know, someone's keeping track of the time?
Me.
Oh,
You got 5.
5 minutes. Any
Well,
questions?
Actually, we were going to hold questions till the
Oh,
end,
okay,
so
I
we'll
thought-
do all questions together.
That sounds great.
Thank you, Jack.
Sure, you're welcome.
So our next speaker is Jane Gassick. I don't mind the arrow in my... He knows if I have. So there's a lot of unfamiliar faces here to me, and some that I know, so I'll just say a little bit about myself, and I'm happy that I was asked to be here. I am a nurse, been a nurse for, oh my gosh, 43 years. Done a lot of different kind of nursing, been on both coasts, and I really enjoyed the first part of your talk and video, because I think my first face-to-face with homelessness and poverty was when I went to Jamaica in college with a girlfriend and took a wrong turn. That's exactly what happened. I didn't end up staying, obviously, but that's, you know, that was a real eye-opener, because you're staying in the resorts, and my husband and I, 3 of our 4 children, live in Hawaii, and homelessness is huge there, and the tent cities are right at the edge of the parks, right on Waikiki Beach, and I know that last around right before the Christmas season, when all the tourists come for the holidays, they scooped them all up, they took away all of their tents, and I don't know where they went. I'm texting and calling my kids, like, where did they put these people? What did they do with them? So Delaware County, so the interesting thing is that I've been coming up to Margaretville, actually, since 1982. My sister and her sister-in-law and families, they bought an old farmhouse, and I instantly fell in love with the area. And even though I was bi-coastal, I would come back to Margaretville as often as possible, and that went on for 15 years. I came up from New Jersey or from California or Connecticut, wherever I happened to be, and ended up in Margaretville, and I never left the property. because it was so beautiful and it was so lovely, and the kids come along, and we did Thomas the Tank, and we did the parades, and we did the street fair. I never knew Roxbury, which I end up living in now. I never left the property or the village, so I had no idea what was going on with any type of homelessness or poverty. I was completely oblivious. I just came up to relax and have a good time. So after 15 years, getting tired of the rat race, my husband and I decided to buy an old farmhouse because I was so in love with the area. So we bought this old farmhouse in Roxbury, and it was condemned, and that's why we could afford it. The interesting thing that people find really funny is that our house came with a little old man. And he had been a widow, and he was living there for a good 12 years. His wife died, and he was camping out there because the house was condemned. The water was contaminated. He couldn't have been happier. His grandchildren would come up and camp out in the house with him. His barbecue grill was filled with dirt so he could grow his own plants. That's how he sterilized it. And he was, the whole house was filled with African violets. He was a whole African violet guy. So when we bought the house, he was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. You know, he's paying pittance in rent. He's in his 80s already, or close, I think he was. And I looked at my husband and I said, we can't make him leave. We kept him. And he lived in the house until he died, or nearly died, until he couldn't get up the stairs anymore, and he finally came down with cancer. And so we found another cottage that we renovated for him, and we moved him there in hospice. And he had family in Long Island, but he was determined he was not going to go live with his family. And so that's basically what happened. So when you think about what happens to people, he could have easily been homeless. I didn't know where he could go. I didn't even know anything about Roxbury. I wasn't about to push him out. And we weren't living there full time until after he died. And then we moved up full time. So still, if you drive up 28, you see a little bit of the shacks, you drive around. It took us so many years to make the house habitable again that I wasn't really aware. But when we moved up full time in 2004, by January, I got a job with the health department as a home health nurse. So if any of you, I think that agency had probably been running for a good 30 years through the county. Shortly after I arrived, they closed the nursing home in Delhi. We had nurses that spanned the entire county. I was a float nurse, so I went everywhere. I was in Sydney, I was in Hancock, I was in Deposit, I was in Franklin, I was in Roxbury, I was in Margaretville, I was in Grand Gorge, I was visiting the adult homes, I was visiting shacks, I was in homes that were so magnificent I didn't want to leave. I wanted to come back on my day off because these people, their furniture, their woodworking, their artwork, their photography, anything. So it was this huge disconnect every day when I go to work. Am I going to be in a shack with no running water, or am I going to be in some beautiful home with somebody who just got out of the hospital and needs some help? So one of the places, so I was thinking about this as I knew I was going to give the talk, just to kind of give you an idea of one of the homes that stuck with me was, it was a while ago, but it was pretty typical of the poverty and the type of conditions that you're not going to see when you're driving along. You can drive from here to Franklin, and I can tell you every single house I was in and what it was like. And don't back up, nurse, because you're going to fall through the floor right into the basement. So you got to watch where you walk, or you got to watch the animals. But this one place, it was a particularly bad day because I had a really bad migraine. It's not a good thing when you don't have a gas station or anywhere to stop. So I have a migraine, and I get a call in the middle of the day. My boss says, you got to come back to the health department. The state just showed up, and they need you to go out. They have to shadow you out in the field. And I'm thinking, why me? We have 25. Okay. So I'll come back, and I'll have this lady follow me. And he gives me a chart, and I'm looking at this. Now, I have been all over the county. I have been in hundreds of homes, but he gives me one I've never been to. I not only have never been there, I don't know how to get there. This is before GPS and cell phones and were really any good. So she's following me, and I'm driving along, and I'm like, going I'm gonna lead her on a wild goose chase. This is not gonna look good for the health department. Everybody's gonna get in trouble because of me. That's all that's going through my mind. And we end up at a barn. And I'm looking around for the house, but there's no house. So I tell her, let's just go and knock on the door of the barn. And what was inside was a barn full of animals and a dirt floor and a kitchen about the size of this little area, maybe, with a table. And everything was off the floor because the floor was dirt. And she put up a piece of plywood to keep the animals from like climbing over me. I had to do wound care. It was a long visit. I had to do a whirlpool dressing, and I didn't even know the quality of the water that's coming out of the faucet. And I don't know what I'm doing, and I've never been there, and I've never met her, and I have this lady from the state, and she's standing like this, and she's in the doorway. She won't even come in because it is so disgusting. And there's just debris piled everywhere, and I don't even know where to put down my nursing bag because I'm thinking she's evaluating me, and there's nothing, I can't start moving her stuff. So what happened was I'm doing this dressing change, and while I'm on the floor, on the ground, doing her foot dressing, a cat decides to jump up on my back, claw his way onto both shoulders. And now I've got the gloves on, I'm on the ground, I don't know what to do, I'm doing this, trying to get the cat off my back. And I looked up at that nurse, and I'm thinking to myself, God, do you think she could just help me? You think she could just take that cat off my back so I can finish what I'm doing? And she just stood there, and she grabs the patient's chart, and she says, I have to go. I have to go now, and I'm like, but you can't, I'm not done. I'm going to be here for another 40 minutes, and you're supposed to be evaluating me, and by the way, how am I supposed to chart and document everything that I'm supposed to if you run away with the chart? The reason why I brought this story up and why I think it's, the barn and the dirt, that's pretty typical for public health nurses going out into the field in Delaware County. It's more the norm than not that you're in very poverty-stricken homes and areas. But the look on her face, when I looked up at her and saw that she was leaving, her face said to me, there is no amount of money in the world you can pay me to do your job. That's what I got from her. And I thought, oh my God, this to me is normal. I do this every day. I think she was really, really horrified. When I got back to the office, my boss said to me, oh, how did it go? And I was like, leave me alone. I got a headache. I don't know, and I don't really care. I did the best that I could in that situation. And anyway, we passed with flying colors, and everything was fine, and nothing ever came of it. But I'm pretty sure, and it wasn't until a couple nights ago when I was trying to think about, oh my God, what stories can I tell? The reason why this story is important is because I was always mad at my boss for doing that to me. You send me out to a place I've never been. I don't know how to get there. I don't know the people. They don't know me. I've got this horrible dressing I have to do. And you send the state with me? Like, what? He did the right thing. He showed the state exactly what we do, exactly what we're faced with. Why sugarcoat it? Why send a nurse out to a nice home where everybody's hunky-dory and there's food in the cupboards and whatnot? So I think while she was horrified, I think she's probably still telling that story about the cat stuck to the nurse's back to this day, because I never forgot that. And there were other cases where hunger would come into play, and I thought I was going to get fired for this one, where I had to go out and we would frequently fill up insulin syringes for patients that could not see well enough to fill up the correct doses. And we would pre-fill syringes for like 2 weeks and leave them in their refrigerator and teach them to do all that. So again, I'm at a place where I've never been before. I go in, I know what I have to do, and I realize that this gentleman has been giving himself insulin shots twice a day like he's supposed to. He has no food in the house. He tells me he hasn't eaten for 3 days, but he's still giving himself insulin, which is a huge disaster. And I'm opening the cupboards and I'm opening the refrigerator, and I'm astonished that there's nothing. There is not a cracker, there is nothing in this man's kitchen. and he's smoking like a fiend, his cigarettes. So I didn't know what to do, so I called the Department of Social Services. Well, the social worker was leaving on for vacation, and she couldn't really do anything. And I'm like, but she's like, I give him an allowance, and I can't help it if he spends it on cigarettes instead of food. And I couldn't walk away from that situation, even though it's not my job. That's maybe it's, you know, there's this territorial stuff that gets in the way sometimes, Department of Social Services, and then the nurses, and you know, it's not your job, you're there to do the needles, but I'm thinking the guy's gonna die if I fill up these needles and leave them and there's no food in the house. So I called every food pantry that I could find, and they were all closed. I finally got a hold of a pastor in a church, and I just begged him to open up the food pantry so that because I didn't travel. By the way, I didn't travel with credit cards or money, because you never know what's going to happen when you're walking into people's homes and you don't know anything about them. So, you know, we had these safety tips where you just don't carry money and you know whatever. So I didn't even have money to go to the grocery store, which I would have done ultimately. But I was allowed into the pantry. I grabbed as much food as they would let me take. I think I got like 3 days worth of food. I called the Department of Social Services back, and I said, you need to mail him his cartons of cigarettes, because you got control of his money. Just mail him the cartons of cigarettes on a schedule, so when you give him his allowance, maybe he can buy food with it. Maybe we can correct this. It seemed like a very simple solution. We did it with other patients, because this would happen over and over and over again. The problem was I got in a little bit of trouble with my supervisor, because now I am late. Because I have all these other people to see, and I haven't even started, and I'm calling in and saying, I'm going to be late, I had to go get this guy food, and I'm getting yelled at. It's not your job. Well, I decided sometimes it's worth getting fired if you have to. I've only done that twice in my life as a nurse. I've only thought to myself, you know what, I don't care what the outcome is, and I basically just said dock my pay for the hours that I spent trying to get this person food. But you have to go above and beyond. And what I learned is that I can't fix all the problems in Delaware County. And by the way, we don't even have the county home health agency anymore. They disbanded that in 2011. They sold it off. And I worked for the new company for a while, and I know they don't always go to the lengths that we did as county nurses. You are schlepping through the woods. You are you're making the best. If you're a nurse that came from a hospital and you think, oh, well, we'll just do home health, like, you better forget it, because a lot of them left. You know, you get through orientation, and then they put you out there alone, and you get an 8-hour safety course, you know, from the sheriff's department about meth labs. You got to watch out for those. They might be booby trapped. They might have snakes. They go, you know, this is not for everybody. But you know, and I do remember another time where right after the training, I was going to be really good. I had the whole 8-hour training. I got this down. I'm going to be safe. You know, when you go into a home, you keep yourself between the patient and the exit, the door. Well, what happens if you have to walk through 9 horse blankets to get to the kitchen, because there's been add-ons to this little shack? And so I ended up in this trailer, going through all these horse blankets. I draw the guy's blood, and I don't know how to get out. I accidentally walked into the person's bedroom. I don't know what he was thinking, but and then I was like, okay, so this, and then I got nervous. I was like, this is really, really, really bad. You really should never like let this happen, and you just went through the training, and you're really stupid. So I got out of there. He showed me which horse blankets to get out through, and I'm sort of like half running down the hill to get to my car as his German Shepherd's chasing me, and I slipped in the snow, and I landed in the only pile of mud that had melted. And so I am completely covered, and the dog is on top of me, and yet I have 6 more houses to go to that day, and I don't have any extra clothes in my car. So what happened over time was that it got really, I don't want to use the word depressing, but when you see poverty in Delaware County from the inside out, I would drive home, and I lost the beauty of the moon, you know, setting at the end of the day, or I didn't really appreciate the sunrise. And I think it was because every day I'm going and I'm facing problems that I don't even know if I can fix them, and I don't even know if they want me to fix them. Some people just don't want you to fix anything. And so you have to be realistic. And so my approach to everybody was treat them with dignity, treat them with respect. I don't know how they got here. I don't know if they'll ever get out of this situation, but I'm gonna do the best that I can do every single day when I go to work. And so that's basically what I did. And it probably all started with keeping the little old man in the house, I don't know, for 7 years. So I don't know, all of this poverty and hunger and homelessness, it's affecting our suicide rates. It's affecting our health. We have all these chronic health issues. It's affecting mental health. We know we don't have mental health services. We know we don't have transportation. We don't have pediatricians. We don't have psychiatrists. What do we have here? How do we survive? I don't, and if I think about that, I get completely overwhelmed. I don't know about anybody else. So I can't focus on every single problem. I can focus on what am I gonna do today that's maybe gonna help somebody. And so I'm still working at the health department. I was laid off for a while when they decided to get rid of the home, I don't say get rid of, it's sold the home agency. But I recently talked to a discharge planner at one of our local hospitals in Waterville, and she said the home health agencies are so overwhelmed. If you get discharged from the hospital and you need a home health nurse to come in, it might be 10 days before that first visit. You see a nurse. And when we were working for the county, I think we had 24 to 48 hours max. We were in that home from and so that bothers me when I hear things like that maybe we were spending too much time in people's homes, but sometimes I was the only human being people would see in 2 weeks. We would come every week or every 2 weeks, and it was hard to tear yourself away because you're their only human contact. So I let their dogs jump all over me. I only feared for my life once, and it was only one time a person who was an alcoholic with a gun who wasn't the patient, who just came down from downstairs, or a dog that wanted to eat me alive if he broke through the door. But other than that, the nurses were brave. They were brave bunch. And I would just want to say that I'm thinking that the schools are the places. I was a school nurse for many years, and I subbed a little bit in Roxbury. School nurses and teachers, they know who these people are. They're hidden maybe from you and me. I only knew about them because I happened to be going into their homes, but the schools know who all these people are. When you have your fundraisers and your Christmas projects and your Thanksgiving baskets, they know exactly who those are going to, and so Frank and Joyce are my hero for what they do. And I just wanted to share with you a couple of things. I have a couple statistics for Delaware County, and they're not all so great. We are the 6th most rural county in New York State. In 1959, Delaware County had 600,000 acres of farmland. As of 2007, you can imagine what it is now, it decreased to 165,572 acres. In 2010, 35% of Delaware County's population was 55 years and older. The median family income in Delaware County is $43,554. In New York State as a whole, not including New York City, it's $56,951. So the lower wages creates a need for dual wage earners, which means they're probably still living in poverty. And the kids, do we have daycare here? No, not very much. The percent of people living in poverty, and I think that might be one of your slides, was 17.1% compared to 16.1% in New York State. 66.7%, this is 2009 to 2011, the percentage of children living below the poverty level with a female head of household with no husband. 66.7% for children under 5 years of age in Delaware County. It's an enormous number. There's reports that there's a greater percentage of employed females below the poverty level than males. Lack of good wage earning jobs, layoffs, poor economy. having to live on a single family income. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what's the education. So less than 10% of males, less than 10% of females have a bachelor's degree in Delaware County. 37% of males and a little more than 37% of females graduate high school. Less than 6% of males and females each have a graduate degree. What are the top causes of deaths in Delaware County, since I'm a public health nurse? So it's heart and circulatory diseases, coronary artery disease, congestive heart failure. I think 90% of the people I used to see who were elderly, it was always congestive heart failure here. Cancer, lung cancer is the leading cause of death in Delaware County among men and women, followed by colorectal cancer for men and breast cancer for women. And of course, if you might notice, the smoking rate in Delaware County is generally higher than the rest of New York State. Opiate use has doubled, and heroin is the primary opiate of choice. 36% of individuals seen by the Drug and Alcohol Abuse Services use opiates. So alcohol as a primary substance of abuse is declining, and we're getting into the prescription drugs and heroin. Alcohol-related motor vehicles, injuries and deaths are much higher than in the rest of the state, New York. So we have a lot of challenges. 53% of children are enrolled in the free or reduced lunch program in Delaware County versus 36% statewide in upstate New York. So that's quite a big number. And the average age of the median age of residents in Delaware County in 2008, this will all be updated. The community health, so the average, it's 45.4. You can go online, anybody, this will be updated. This is the community health assessment. All the stakeholders in Delaware County get together every 5 years, and they pull their reports and their statistics. So it's hospitals and it's agencies. Anyone can go online and you can pull up this whole manual, and you can see everything down to how many births, how many women breastfeed, how many people, what ages are our kids starting smoking. I mean, it's, you know, it's 105 pages of detailed statistics. And Frank will be imparting more information from some of the focus groups that were held. But this is something that's updated every year. I also want to say that as a resource, I brought some brochures. Delaware County has had for, I don't know how many years, 5, 6 years, a functional, what they call a functional needs registry that nobody has used. So if you have a neighbor, or you know of someone, or you have a family member who is living alone, who in case of a catastrophic emergency like the flooding and the hurricane, who might need to be evacuated and is going to need special assistance because they're on oxygen, or because they can't ambulate, or they're in a wheelchair and they're not going to be able to get out and evacuate. This functional needs registry, they're trying to resurrect it. And so you can register your own family member, you can register your neighbor, you can register yourself. And what it does is it tells our local EMS system what kind of assistance you're going to need, you know, in an emergency. And I know that a lot of people may have relatives up here, and they live far away, or you know, vice versa. So it's something that I brought some brochures. They're going to try to resurrect that. And the other thing is through the Office of the Aging, the New York Connects program, I brought a couple pages which tells you how to get their resource manual online. It was updated in 2015. It's incredibly accurate, except for a couple things. But every resource in Delaware County, if you're looking for something that has, you know, where is the senior housing, or where, you know, where is this, where is that, it's hundreds of pages long, and it's got everything in there for Delaware County, almost every agency, you know, whether you're looking for housing or you're looking for suicide help or anything. So that particular resource directory, it looks like this, but I don't want to print out all, you know, I'm trying to save trees here, you know, a lot of them in Delaware County. But the information to how to find this online, and then you can ask them if you want like a printed copy, they can get that for you. But I think it's a good resource manual for every household to have, and this is what the brochure looks like for the functional needs registry. And I brought a little raccoon over there. I'm just gonna make a plug while I can. We have free rabies programs for dogs and cats and whatnot. It's free. So when you talk about poverty and people, they all seem to have pets. Every house I went into, they had pets. We always try to get them to go to the free rabies clinics, and they're posted online. But I have to tell you, people love to pick up raccoons. I don't know what it is about this place. Leave them alone, so I'm just gonna make that plug. They think they're kittens. Raccoons end up in your little cat cage on your porch, and you stick your hand in to pet it, and then you get bit, and on and on and on. So I don't know. I work in the rabies program now too, so I don't do home health anymore. We have immunization clinics for people that don't have insurance or are underinsured. I'm having trouble finding those people, so I've recently tried to connect with at least the Arkville-Morganville Food Pantry. I want to get the word out. I think we need to get out of the office. We need to get out into the public. That's why I wanted to come here, because now that we don't have nurses out in the field every single day, all across Delaware County, we're just too limited. We have 7 nurses and half of them are part-time. So we have a big job to do. We don't have the home health agency, and we still would like to reach out to the homeless and people and get the resources that they need, and that's my spiel. I have my business cards here, so if anybody wants one, they can pick one up after.